Internet Vikings World of Experts.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar about the iGaming and online sports market in the US. And with me today, I have Rickard Wikström, the founder of Internet Vikings and one of the really veterans in this industry, hosting for the iGaming industry for the last 20 years. And everyone knows Rickard, and Rickard knows everyone. So it's not like the monkey that everyone knows, but he knows nobody. With Rickard, it's the opposite. And it's a fantastic guy, and I'm happy to be chairman in Internet Vikings and have had the opportunity to meet and work with Rickard. And we also have Elena Kwakwa-Veras, responsible for regulatory affairs within Internet Vikings. And I would say the expert in the brains when it comes to this subject, the US market, living in New York, soon celebrating Thanksgiving, I think it is, and waiting for the winter. So with that, everyone, welcome. Thank you. And
hi, everybody.
I think I would like to hand over to you because we want to do a kind of a recap. Where is US today in terms of states license and also the difference between the sportsbook license or the online sports and iGaming. So I hand over to you. We have prepared a bit of a presentation. And please throw in your questions and we will try to answer as many as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jesper. Hi, everybody. Once again, thank you for joining us today. We are in November, which means that it's the perfect time to recap the year and also see what the next year will bring us. So we have tried to put together a good overview of the regulatory market as well as the revenue and predictions for 2023 and 2024. So let's start with 2023 and what this year has brought us so far. There's different ways to count how many states are. How many states have online legal sports betting? Here we're talking about the states that allow statewide sports betting made from mobile. And this year has been good to us so far. We have 3 more states that have joined the cohort of online sports betting. There were 9 total states that attempted to do so, but they failed at different stages during the legalization process. So far, we only have 3: Kentucky, North Carolina, and Vermont.
And Elena, which are the states that failed?
There have been a bunch. There was Minnesota, Missouri, there was Texas and Georgia, even Hawaii at some point. But again, they all failed at different stages, and those are the 3 that succeeded.
Yeah, but this is interesting because are they failing forever or will they come back? Because that would kind of show a trend of going forward as well.
Absolutely. Some states do pass it on the first try. Some states take a couple rounds to grasp the interest from the lawmakers. Also, like political climate changes, economical climate changes. So there are different circumstances around in each specific state. But we'll talk about 2024 outlook a little bit later on. Yes. When it comes to iGaming, there were also 4 states that tried to make the iGaming laws legal, but unfortunately not a single one of them have passed. So we're still at 6 states with online casino and 7 states with online poker. But this year was not a complete bust for iGaming. As of November 14, West Virginia has signed onto multi-state internet gaming agreement, which means that now West Virginia, Delaware, Michigan, New Jersey, and Nevada can all share the pool of players that want to play an online poker. As you know, it's very hard to do it within one state, given that the population is not that high. But now they're sharing the pool, so they're able to leverage the amount of states within this compact.
This is something we will follow when we do this next year as well, because that is perhaps a much more interesting fact than many people think about, because poker, as we know it, is kind of a pool game in the sense that you need a lot of players for it to kind of develop. So this is something we will look into and follow statistically and see how the poker market is developing in US now when you have this over state possibilities of pooling liquidity.
Yeah, absolutely. And what makes this the situation even more interesting is that West Virginia does not have any legal online poker app so far, even though it's been legal for a while. And not a single major app has expressed interest in entering the market so far. But potentially with the West Virginia joining this compact, and now there's a pool of players from 5 states, we're hoping that this can change in future. And as Pennsylvania and Connecticut still remained on the sidelines, we are hoping that West Virginia join could make Pennsylvania reconsider a decision in the future. So it's definitely an interesting topic that we will be following.
So we might see a comeback in the online poker here in the US.
Maybe. Yep.
Interesting. Good.
Another noteworthy mention, if we can move on to another slide, is the state of Florida.
Yes, this is really interesting for us, not being US based and haven't followed this so carefully. And we also saw that we have some European viewers here. So please, it's a battle in Florida.
Yes. It's the biggest state also with illegal online sports betting so far, even bigger than New York. It has relaunched Hard Rock sports betting app on November 7th, 2023, almost 2 years after it was originally launched. Seminole Tribe has been basically in and out of courts fighting the West Flagger Association. Basically, they are suing the state and the governor, Ron DeSantis, over the compact, arguing that it violates Florida constitutional amendment requiring statewide voter approval of gambling expansion. And they also argue that it violates the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act because the bets aren't being placed on tribal lands, because Hard Rock obviously wants, for it to be a statewide gaming. Florida Supreme Court is expected to rule on the merits in the case possibly sometime in the first quarter of 2024. But until that time, existing users can use the Hard Rock app to place bets in the state of Florida, and new users can join the wait list. So another very interesting development in the end of this year that we will also be following very closely, and we'll see where it brings us.
Thank you. That's it's a battle, and it's interesting to see, and it's we will know pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah. So let's move on. We have talked a little bit about 2023, and before we jump into 2024, let's look at overall trends that we're seeing so far. As you see, it all started in 2010. A long time ago, there was only Nevada. And then fast forward to 8 years later, when Supreme Court struck down the federal ban on sports betting, allowing the states to legalize if they decide to do so. So in 2019, we have seen a huge spike in states that allowed legal online sports betting and legal iGaming. Ever since 2020, pandemic happened, 2021 has propelled that effort significantly as the states were looking for additional revenue to supplement their budgets. Since 2021, we have seen a steady increase of 3 states per year that allow online sports betting only so far. And we are, based on the projections that we are looking, in 2024 and 2025, we're looking to add 2-3 states each to this cohort, which is
before we go further. I mean, it's quite interesting to see here that it has been 0 iGaming states since 2019, and that's quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I know that you will come back to this, but when you look at this graph, it stands out as it almost looked like a mistake. They only managed to launch once and then forgot about it. But that's not true fully, and we will come back to that. But it's interesting to see here. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. When we are looking at 2024, the new sports betting states, if we can skip to another slide, As we mentioned, we are expecting at least 2 states to pass those online gaming laws, and based on what we have seen in last year in 2023, Minnesota, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and Georgia have all attempted to pass these laws, but as you know, they all failed. So based on that, we are expecting Minnesota and Missouri to actually succeed in 2024. They have gone the furthest out of all those states. So we do think that there will be another try at legalizing online sports betting. Unfortunately, everybody was looking to Texas, but as it did not become legal in 2023, and Texas legislature meets every other year. So there is no hope of legalization until 2025, which is unfortunate. But we also have Oklahoma, Georgia, South Carolina, and Hawaii that are likely to introduce the bills again in 2024. They failed at pretty early stages last year. And it will be an election year in the US. So we are not expecting them to succeed again, but we'll see. There's always surprises when it comes to this kind of thing in the US.
Good, but we're hitting over 30 states here soon, and I mean the trend is quite clear. There will be more online sports betting states opening up over the next 3 to 4 years, definitely, and some already next year.
It wouldn't be
sure.
like my view on it is like you said, it's an election year next year, and it's, as you said, it's a very political matter, and because of that, like I hope, and I know a lot of people within the industry hope it will be a little bit of a catch-up effect in 25, like the spring of 25. There'll be a lot of things happening during that time, but also during the whole 2025. Which would hopefully for the industry mean that there will be a lot of new states coming online.
So 25 will be the new 2019. That's good.
That's the hope, yes.
Yeah.
And then when we were talking about iGaming, as we have touched on briefly, there was a good momentum this year to pass iGaming laws in 4 states. As you all see them on the map, but all those efforts were futile. New Hampshire came the closest, but in the end, it was not going to happen. And what we're seeing is that iGaming appears to be a very hard sell for the lawmakers in the US. And that happens for a few reasons. Again, the industry experts say that a lot of states still have leftover federal government funding from post-COVID, but that is expected to run out in the next year or so, 2024, 2025, and the local lawmakers will be looking for additional budget funds. But also a lot of Americans, it's no surprise, they have favorite sports teams, they have game days, they come together, and betting on sports seems like such an obvious option, while online casino gambling seems a little bit something niche, and maybe that not a lot of people are going to do. So we don't expect any new states in iGaming in 2024, most likely 2025, but there's definitely an interest that we think is gonna come in a year or so.
Yes, and we have a slide further down here that underpinning that claim. So what will you come to that? Mm-hmm. So here are the states launched.
Regulation is good and all, but let's talk about actually the revenue that these laws are bringing. So we had quite a few launches this year, along with Florida swooping in at the end. But we do have Ohio, Massachusetts, Kentucky, Maine, and Florida. And as you see, Ohio is going very strong ever since the launch day. Ohio is about the same size as New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and it's in that top 3. With them coming very closely. Massachusetts is doing good, although Massachusetts is half as small. And if you consider that 10% of adult population actually plays betting on sports, those are still really good numbers. There's still no data for Kentucky and Maine, as they launched only recently, but we are expecting those revenue numbers to be in line with what we have seen so far based on the population size and the interest. Kentucky, perhaps even more so, at least just as much as Massachusetts, giving a huge interest in gaming in that state. So stay tuned to our update in Q1 2024 for those revenue numbers.
A question there. Do you think we will see Florida numbers? Do you think that will be published?
Because absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's already numbers for the handle. No revenue data yet, but handle already shows us that is already making a pretty good volume. And again, there is a limitation that it's only to the existing users, so no new users can sign up, and there is only one platform, which also limits sports betting accessibility to a lot of people. So
do we know how
definitely
many
in Q1
up for it? Is that public? Have you seen anything about?
I have not seen the data yet for that. No.
So would it be? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it will take a second.
Yeah.
And then when
we have a question here that really fits into this narrative here. So Chris Smith is asking, California, any chance that you guys see on the next ballot initiative since they killed it last time? What's your view on that?
Yeah, California is going to try to reintroduce it again next year, but a lot of experts are saying that it's probably one of the least likely states, very close to Utah, that has no legal gaming at all to legalize it in the next 3 to 4 years, unfortunately. But probably not.
Yeah. And isn't it also that they need to align so many different organizations within California? That was the issue they had last year, that there was too many fights around it, and I think was it like 12% or something. Like they got something like that. It was like nothing. And
there's a lot of tribes in California. Yeah, and they all need to be in agreement with a state to reach to actually reach an agreement. And plus, the voters also have to agree to this new legislation, which makes it even harder because there is a huge problem in California, obviously, that is related to homelessness and people being pushed over the verge of poverty every single day. So that's definitely a lot of the Californians that I know, they all voted no because of that, because they just think that it's going to make those social issues even worse.
Good. Got some clearance there. I hope that 2 thumbs up from Chris there. So I think that was a really good answer. Thank you, Helena. Perfect. So let's move on.
We've talked about 2023 launches. We also have 2 states so far that are going to launch in 2024. The next one is going to be Vermont, that is likely to launch in January. We don't have a date yet. And then North Carolina, that will launch in the first half of the next year without a date so far yet. Vermont is very, very small. So we don't expect this launch to be anything groundbreaking. But North Carolina has a significant population, so North Carolina has definitely a potential to be one of the big states when it comes to online sports betting.
Good. Yeah, Vermont looks small even for a Swede. Sorry for that, Vermont. That was says more about Sweden. Okay, good. I mean, but the thing here is that on the sportsbook side, or the online sports betting, we see how things are moving along in a certain pace, so to speak, and there's a trend, and we are now above 30 states. So, and we most likely not hit all states. It will not be a 100% penetration, but still there are still, at least in my view, another 8, 9, 10 states to open up at least. And then you have a rather complete online sports market in the US, I would say.
Yeah, they say that the predictions for the next 5-10 states is that we'll have another 10 states that have legalized online sports betting. So those are pretty good. That's a pretty good coverage of the US when it comes to online sports betting. Yeah, and then if we're looking at the gross revenue here on this slide, we're seeing that it grows, quarter over quarter, and then year over year. It all keeps growing across all the verticals: iGaming, sports betting, table games, and slots. So gaming still remains a very inflation-resistant industry, and we're seeing that. And we're seeing that in the numbers every single month.
Yes, and these are super strong growth numbers, and they will of course continue. In that sense, the US market is still pretty young, and with young markets, you basically, if you learn from Europe, you see a transition from land-based and from kind of illegal gambling into the land-based, into the online gambling. And that will continue for years to come. I mean, if you take Sweden, which is one of the most mature markets, we had this growth for like 15 years, 10 to 15 years with every year growth, year-on-year growth. Not because more people were gambling, but more people started gambling online, and were also kind of canalized into from black market gambling and illegal gambling into regulated gambling. So, and this will continue. So my view here is that, or my prediction here is that these growth numbers will continue. Definitely.
For sure.
And then underneath, there's a strong underlying growth as well when it comes to the total GGR, also including land-based. So there's momentum for gaming in the US right now.
Do we know any numbers on how many? What's the online sports betting percentage in the US? I know in Sweden it's like 90% of everyone betting or doing gambling is doing it online. Do we have any number for that in the US?
I don't have a percentage off the top of my head, but I would expect it to be in line with the rest of the world when it comes to iGaming in the states where it's allowed.
Find that for next time we have this one of these webinars, because that also indicates that I want to contradict you. I think it's a bit lower than in Europe because the industry is so young. So the tech majority of the technology using tech and mobiles and so they are 100% the same. But since the industry is a bit younger, I still think there's a lower online pickup in the US market than in many mature European markets like England and Sweden and others. But that's also a good thing because that means that the online market will grow even faster and have a longer growth period than in Sweden, the online market grows basically with GDP right now because everyone is playing online of the people playing. So that's an interesting data point to see if we can get that to the next webinar we have. Yeah,
absolutely. But speaking about iGaming, if we move on to the next slide, we see that there is a huge revenue growth in the states that are legal, and same for sports betting. That the numbers just keep going up. Top 5 in online sports betting shuffles back and forth. We had Ohio that launched that was definitely in the top 5 for a while, and still is. But numbers just keep going up.
And exactly what you're saying, and numbers keep going up, and they will probably continue going up for the reasons we talked about. And looking at this graph to the right side there, it's quite impressive. It's the same. It's still the same number of states basically, and it has been growing within this. So this is an organic growth, while the sportsbook growth is it's two-dimensional. It's an organic growth in every state, but there's also new states coming in. So and we can see that on the next slide how I think, Elena, this one, how strong the iGaming is, and this is why I believe that more and more states actually will regulate over time. If you look at this, there's 7.1 billion in revenue online sports betting, and there's approximately 4.5 billion in online. The sports betting is on 29 states. I don't know, do the math, it's like 200 something million in average per state, and 6 states for 4.9, that's something like 600. So the average revenue number is X3 on online gaming. And of course, when regulators and state lawmakers realize this and see where the tax money actually are hidden, or where there's a possibility of tax money, I believe they will start opening up these markets as well, and especially seeing how it works in other markets. And if you take the learnings from Europe, compulsive gambling and problematic gambling is not increasing. It's the same level. I mean, in most European countries, it's between 2 and 4% of the adult population are in risk or are at a problematic gambler, and half percentage point is compulsive gamblers. And it's been the same for the last 30 years, and long way before we had online gaming, and now we have online gaming, and it's still the same. So when lawmakers see this and actually have the data on this, and not what you think or what you believe, but actually data, I think more and more states actually will open up. And yeah, so I think these numbers talk to themselves somehow in that sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the 6 states is basically four.
Exactly.
If you look at or 3, depends how you see it. So it's a lot.
Yeah. So no, it's a huge, and this also means that people like to gamble. They like, this is an entertainment. They like to do it, and that's also another aspect into this. As long as you do it in a secure way, and it also canalizes gambling into a controlled and regulated environment. So now I think we will see this going forward, and then more and more of these states will open up. Perhaps not all, perhaps not as you said before. The online sport is such an integrated part of the US society. You meet them on Sundays, you look at Sunday game, you bet, and you have been betting even before it was regulated, and you have played your fantasy games, etc., etc. So yes, that will be bigger, and perhaps should be bigger. But once again, I think 4 or 6 states is a small number when it comes to iCasino.
Yeah, and if you think about population numbers, basically 6 states equates to 13% of the US population. If you think about it, only legal online gaming, iGaming, is only available for 13% of all the US population. It doesn't really add up. So it's not necessarily about adding an online casino. It's more about sometimes bringing, those people over from the gray markets onto the white markets, and making sure that they have protections and the tax revenue is going into the budgets.
And when it comes to when it comes to the US market, it's not even gray market; it's black market, because you're absolutely not allowed to offer your service to US players. So it's and we also know that the level of responsible gaming and security is so much lower with most, not with everyone, but with most of the black operators. So that's a reason. And we have a question here. It's a pre-submitted question that we got before. Where do you see the future of offshore operators as the US slowly continues to regulate and legalize online gaming across the states? It's Chris again. Thank you for that, Chris. It's a really good question. And it is, as we talked about. I mean, one of the main reasons to regulate is to canalize gambling into a controlled and safer environment that the government controls. You can set up a set of rules to how to behave, how to treat players, how to treat them with players with problems, how to check for money laundering and responsible gaming and all this. And that's super important part of legislation. And the other part is, of course, taxation and such. And so the answer lies in this, that the more you open up, the less black and gray gambling in other markets will be there, because there's no reason for me to do the hustle and take the risk of going into a rather unsecure and unsafe site when I can log on into something that I know works. And some part of my winnings will go to tax. I'm not winning less, I'm not paying more, basically, but it's the the gaming operator that pays the tax. And honestly, taxation is a good thing. Without taxation, there would be a lot of things that we couldn't do. Then you shouldn't overtax. That's another thing. But still, so there's so many reasons for me as a player to actually choose these regulated sites rather than unregulated sites. And so opening up is a way, as Elena said before, to kind of push these sites away. So I think that we get more and more difficulties for these sites the more regulators are opening up for regulated or for approved sites in each state.
But my take on that is like, yes, and like slowly, I think is the key word here, like continues to regulate. Like this is the problem, because if we would have not 29 states, but 49 states that have legalized, and also on the casino side, that's like, if that would have been a lot more than what we're currently seeing, like we wouldn't have the issue of like black gaming in the US, because that's the easiest way to battle that is by getting, so it's not, what was it, 16%? 13%. That's now can do like casino online. Like
the rest, if they want to play, they have to play black sites, and that's not a good thing. And then you can say, yeah, but they shouldn't be able to offer the sites into the US market. Well, they are. Just face it, they are. So and this is also very important for all the regulators listening into this webinar. It's also very, very, and we've seen this in Europe and in certain markets, it's extremely important that you regulate in a balanced way. Because if the customer offering is worse on the regulated, I mean, me as a customer, if I can't get my games there and it's too difficult to log on, and there are too many restrictions on bonuses, etc., some players will still go black because they get their bonuses and they get the certain games and so forth. So finding a balance on the regulation is also extremely important. My view is that in the US, this is not a problem. I would say that the US operators have the opportunity they need to cater for and channelizing the players into their site.
But like one thing is that could contradict this is how you do KYC in the US. It's still a very problematic process because you need, like, there's scanning, there's passport, there's a lot of steps that you need to go through compared to, let's say, Sweden, where you all log in with a half state controlled ID system.
Yeah, but that's because we have a
but it's not something like that in the US.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. But you can't make it too cumbersome to be a customer, because then people will pop off to other places. But still, I think that should work. We got a question about crypto. And do we know anything about that, Elena, where regulators are on crypto as a payment method?
Yeah, I did not see any news recently about, crypto entering gaming market in the US. Crypto has had pretty bad press lately in the US. So I do not believe that it's on anybody's immediate list of things to legalize, but we'll see. Maybe one day it will change.
Yeah, I think crypto is kind of it has to prove itself to being it's functional, but also to be a kind of a prudent currency, so to speak, if you excuse my bad English here. But I think you understand what I mean. And that will take some time more. And it's not only the US regulators, there are also a lot of other regulators are very kind of, we wait a bit, let's see what happens. And so crypto becomes by default a non-regulated currency. That might be a reason to regulate it and so forth. But let's see. Not next year, I would say.
Yep.
Good. Let's see.
This one. We have this one also talking about how to block. What means are available to the authorities in the key states to combat the black market, such as IP blocking, payment blocking, games blocking. And I can say, like, from a technical perspective, like, the regulator are doing a good job. They're going after suppliers, vendors. It is going very well. Like, they are doing it. The problem is that these are like these companies are making so much money from it. So you need to make it more difficult to do it. You can't like payment. Okay, then they have a guy coming over to their homes with cash if they're winning. Games blocking. Okay.
You have thousands and thousands of.
And they just build new games.
Yes.
Just copy games. IP blocking, same thing. So I think like the only way to do it, it's basically to provide a better service and to show that this is actually for a good thing, and then it will hopefully solve itself. Not tomorrow, but within the next decade. And my opinion on this is that you need to have the long perspective on it, and every day battle going against trying to find these companies that supply both unlicensed and licensed, like being a supplier for both sides, and go after them. Yes. Work on that in each and every case.
Yes, and this is such a broad and difficult topic. I mean, in Sweden we have successfully launched Spelstop, which is a government driven function where I can block myself as a player, and I'm blocked on all regulated sites at the same time. If I block myself from one site, I'm blocked on everyone. And this is, of course, an amazing tool for people with tendency of gambling too much and problematic issues with gambling. However, a lot of them can't really get rid of the urge. They want to gamble again, and they can't get to their sites, so they go black. And so what you create here is a way to push them out. Initially, it was an amazing thing. We have kind of 100,000 people blocked themselves from gambling. That would have been amazing if they stopped gamble. Some does, absolutely, but not all. So my view here, and this is a bit contradictory, it's a bit like swearing in the church, is that actually the Swedish regulated operators should be able to let them play if they come back, but in a controlled way. Perhaps not let them play directly, perhaps really ask them, are you really sure that you want to play? Okay, you know that you are blocked, so shouldn't you? And you still insist and say, yes, okay, let's start with $5 or $10 and keep it there. Rather than just put them away to someone and say, wow, welcome, here's we double your deposits. You said 10,000, perfect, you get 20 from us. So, but doing that is kind of, for a lot of people, feels contradictory. So this is such a huge question, but it all started with being regulated and rather than blocking, because these players will find their ways. They are addicted. They need to gamble. In that sense, it doesn't matter from other addictions where you need to have that rush or that kick or whatever is your choice. So it's a difficult matter, but once again, it starts with being regulated. Yes, sorry, we are being off a bit. Yes, we have another question here. Is the social gaming market growing as much as online sports betting and iGaming? Are there regulatory considerations around launching and operating a social casino? Yeah, this is a really interesting question and something when I'm advising companies back and forth, this is a question that comes up a lot of the times. I don't have any data right now on how fast it's growing. It's a growing market. It's a very lucrative market, and it's not regulated in the sense that you can't lose money, which you can, but you're not gambling. You can't win money. So basically, if you can't win, you can't lose, but you still have to pay somehow, either by credit or via there's an advertising revenue as well. But I don't foresee any regulations in any of the markets where we are active right now. Elena, is that the difference when it comes to the US?
You are right that when it comes to social casinos, they are their own thing. Yeah, as long as there is no actual money that is being bet involved, that it's not regulated right now. But yeah, as you said, like it can be a very interesting option for some of the companies to enter the US market, and to go after that player base. And a lot of those companies, implement their own, sources of revenue, either via ads or via in-app purchases. So it's still a very lucrative.
Yes, I'm a bit surprised. I'm a bit surprised that there's relatively few utilizing this opportunity of being ahead of the curve. And once again, we saw this with the fantasy games companies, the big ones today, how they kind of had the player base when it opened up for online sports. And the same, if you had a social gaming casino, that is of course an amazing way to then turn these players above 18 years into becoming gamblers and customers to your regulated casino or your real money casino. You have to gamble on which states are opening up, and hopefully you're listening to this seminar and you get a better idea. And we'll call Elena or email her and ask her what her predictions are. And then you run a social casino there. You get your brand out there. You even might make some money, etc., etc. So I think more and more will look into this opportunity.
But Elena, haven't it been some of the regulators going after social casinos, and there's been some other verticals of the non-regulated gaming space that have been drawing some attention lately? I think I saw something about.
Not to my recollection. Yeah. There was definitely a lot of debate and conversation in a lot of fantasy sports, but not so much about social
sweepstakes. And sweepstakes.
Yeah, sweepstakes.
Sweepstakes you're referring to, but not so much the social casino. And the social casino is basically the app store and Google Play built on this. So it's a huge market, but it's also a huge phenomenon in itself. People are playing every day. So it's a big market, yes.
But Elena, what's your view on sweepstakes and the regulators? Who will win? Will any win?
Hopefully the market will win in the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will have to see. There's definitely a lot of discussion from the regulators going on about what is the best way to move forward. I do think that there will be more news coming out of it next year.
Yeah. Good. Let's see here. We can continue with some questions. We are almost there anyway, aren't we? We're going to hand over to Rickard for a while and talking a bit about cybersecurity. Yes.
We do have a good question related to cybersecurity, Rickard.
Should we pause that question? And I hand over to you, Elena, and you hand over to Rickard. Just briefly go through the regulatory framework for hosting, because that differs a lot from Europe, where you can basically cloud host wherever you want, and you can offer this to, if you have a license, you can Sweden, Germany, England, and so forth. While in the US, it's much more state by state.
Yeah. In the U.S., again, federal court does not decide on iGaming. Ever since the ban was struck, it's been always up to the states. And and the more states, just as you and I talked yesterday, Jesper, the more states decide for themselves that they want to offer online gaming, the harder it will be for there to be like a federal law. And again, due to nature, of the U.S. as a country, a lot of issues are being decided on a state by state basis, and it does make sense in a lot of ways, because it's a huge country, and there are a lot of states that want to keep that iGaming revenue for themselves, and by making these companies host inside a single state, they are tapping into that revenue, which absolutely makes sense. But yeah, it does make cybersecurity so much more complex. And Rickard, if you want to talk about the last slide that we have, and we have a question from Dan here. In the light of the increasing importance of cybersecurity, what measures and the best practices do you recommend to safeguard against DDoS attacks?
That's a good question, and that's a nice P3-övergång, as you say in Sweden, to Rickard. That's a nice handover, that means. Yes, please, Rickard.
No, but it's a very good question, and like Elena was saying, you need to have it in each and every state. For sports betting, of course, for iGaming, it's per state regulation. And just to add on to that, we talked a lot about tax revenue, and I don't know how many hours Elena and a little bit me has spent on trying to figure out tax, like where we need to pay tax in each and every state in the US, because we operate in 23 states. So it's like, okay, where do we need to pay tax? What tax? And because there's all different taxes in each and every state. and that's also state revenue, right? It's also revenue to the state, and this is one of the few industries in the world that say, please come and tax us, give us more taxes because we're happy to pay it, and that's what we as a hosting company will do as well in each and every state. So that basically adds on to this the tax revenue from the gaming industry.
And that's also one of the reasons why there is a legislation to have. It's not only by security and controlling, it's also, And one small thing to say as well. And there will also be states choosing not to offer iGaming or online sportsbook. And that's also another reason why it will not be a federal law. So I think we are very, very far from the federal law where you can.
Yeah, no, but it won't happen.
Yes,
the next decade it won't happen because the states have power to decide this. Basically, they are. If we take the slide again, I can just jump back to the question, and I think that what we are talking about is cybersecurity. Again, this is not anything it's not anything new. It's things that I've been saying for the last 2 decades. It's and we can start from the top, like the importance of disaster recovery. Like we had a question, like one of the pre-submitted questions was regarding the MGM resort issue they had in September, and my view on it is that the importance of disaster recovery, the importance of having a server, a set of servers, an environment somewhere else or at the same location, but it's just not powered on. Because if there's one thing a hacker and a ransomware group cannot do, it's basically to physically plug in a cable. It's physically to flip the switch on the server, because it's a physical thing. You need to be there to do it. So what I would say to everyone is you should have, if you're running a multi-billion-dollar business out of one rack, out of 2 racks in one data center, have a disaster recovery, because you're literally betting your billion-dollar business out of
one place.
Yeah, it's like this much service. It's it's crazy compared. If any other industry where you would say this, it's they would not think it's for real. But and regarding the disaster recovery, it's the importance here is to have it so that the hackers cannot do it
in another. But this is also why some states demand this. They have this as part of the regulation. Yes.
No, but the same New Jersey, you need to have a secondary backup somewhere else outside of where you have it. It's not a full disaster recovery. I am very sure that we will start seeing a lot more disaster recoveries rolling out, not because maybe of the regulators come in and state it, also because it's a sensitive, smart decision as a business owner, as the board, to basically just demand.
That's a typical CFO comment on the management meeting. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. What's the risk? And we're seeing with West Virginia that is in the rules and regulations that you need to have 2 data centers. But it's common sense, as you say. It's common sense.
Don't put your billion-dollar business into one piece of plastic and chips.
No, it's not, especially in states like Pennsylvania, like Michigan, New Jersey, of course. But I think this will. And I understand a lot of engineering department that haven't had focused on it for the past 3 years because it'll be new states. You see, it's 29 states. It's 20 states the last 4-5 years. Every quarter is a new state. I understand. You don't have time to look back and see, okay, what's going on with old states. So that's it. And another thing, someone asked about the DDoS protection. It's it shouldn't be something extra. It should be. It's
hygiene factor.
It's a hygiene factor. It's should you have a firewall? Do I need a firewall? It's everyone knows that you need a firewall for your your home network, for your computer, for your network, your company network. It shouldn't be something extra. It should always be there. That's my view on DDoS protection, you need to have it if it's like volumetric, like we offer that for free to all our customers. Is it like a WAF that I think should be added on top, like a web application firewall? And that comes back to the third thing. It's like the easiest way to secure something from an external, like secure and don't show your attack vectors from outside, is basically don't show your data center IPs. Like I spoke to one customer last week. It's like, don't do this. He's like, yeah, you just laughed about it. And it's like, yeah, of course I don't do that. And then I have so many other customers that are showing the data center IPs to everyone and anyone, like api.rgsprovider.com, and then you have the IP address.
It's like leaving your keys in your brand new Porsche.
Or map to the key.
Map to the key. Exactly.
It's the easiest way. And like you have Cloudflare, it costs, like we're talking a few $100s up to $1,000 a month to secure one API endpoint. It's nothing in the big point. If you have a WAF, you have everything in that kind of package. So don't do that. It's my one takeaway. I think disaster recovery, DDoS protection is not extra, and don't show the data center IPs.
Okay, 3 very straight to the point tips from 2 decades of data cybersecurity experience, and they might sound obvious, but they are not. And please take this with you, do a checklist, and if you are the CFO, you just bring them on the next meeting. How much revenue will we lose if any of this happens? And the answer will be, oh, let's do this. I would say. So with that, we open up for some more Q&As. Where are we, Elena? Do you have something that you want us to pop up? I need to have my glasses. Yeah, the use of skill games offer a great way to enter the social gaming space without the risk of regulatory uncertainty. That's true. Absolutely, as long as you do it as skill, there are no there's no RNG into this one, and it's a total different set of rules that apply. So that's a good tip, definitely. What strategic considerations and best practices do you recommend to ensure a successful entry into the iGaming and online sports betting space? Elena, that's your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we have another question here that is very similar, so maybe we can combine them. In state-by-state revenue analysis, are there any regions that stands out as particularly promising for iGaming and sports betting operators? And my advice has always been is to follow the opportunity. That, the states are very different in terms of population, in terms of demographics, in terms of revenue. Sometimes the amount of, operators available, what are the platforms, depending on the, on the contract that you reach with your partner. The percentages, the revenue share can be different. So my advice would be to do what makes sense for you. Again, there's a lot of good states like the Big Five, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Michigan. There is a huge market there, and it can seem like a no-brainer, especially because, after you have a license and after you've been operating in those big states, it will be significantly easier to enter some of the smaller states because you've done your due diligence, and the regulators are extremely thorough when it comes to licensing application and background verification and all kind of things. But sometimes, if there is a better opportunity in a smaller state, maybe it makes sense to start with a state, like Vermont or Maine. I do feel like the bottom line is nobody knows your business and your opportunity better than you. And the advice that I would give before entering the market is to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. Meaning, if you think that there could be a change in the board or in C-suite executives, or is there any restructuring, mergers and acquisitions, think about it ahead of time, because when you submit those licensing applications, those those are all going to be examined. And again, any changes, it's just going to delay the process so much more. And which means that the launch date is going to be delayed. So yeah, that would be my advice. What do you think, Jennifer?
I have a small story. Regards of that. I've been in numbers of these applications, and I have to send in my bank details and my transactions and everything. It's like a page like this. And then I was asked to do this for Pennsylvania for one company, and then 2 years later, whatever, I had to send in the same to Pennsylvania. And then comes this call, I think it was, or an email. Someone was asking me, excuse me, could you explain the difference between the first one you submitted and the second one you submitted? My answer is yes, life. I mean, your bank balance differs a bit between years. So yeah, life. And she actually took that as an answer. Okay,
but I can follow up on that because I get this question quite often. Like because me and Elena, we've been doing it for the last 3 years. Like it's been like a lot of. We learned a lot. I don't know. We can say that, Elena. And what I would do is like don't stress it. Like if you feel, and I say this to everyone, like if you feel okay, somewhere in 2024 we want to do it. I had this discussion at Sigma last year. It's like if you have someone, or if you want to do it, start with it. If you don't have the time to start with it like 100%, just put someone or yourself or someone 2 hours a week or something like that. Just investigate. Go to this webinar, work with it, and understand the opportunity. Just follow the market. Just see what kind of opportunities it is, and it could be there, and just learn about the market, and then also start looking through the application process. Okay, this is what I need to get. Like this is all the things, because it's not a difficult process. It just takes a lot of time to make sure you get the license. So just start with it and go through and look through the legislation, the requirements. It's pretty easy. Just okay, this is what we need. Okay. Then
it's a project. It's a project.
Yeah.
And also another view from my side, advising companies into this. And I mean, Internet Vikings are in plus 20 states, but started with one. And I think that's the one, perhaps one of the main lessons here. Start with one, do it right, and unless you're super big and have a lot of funding and a big staff of people, you can of course multiply this into more. But for most of us, whether it's an operator coming from Europe or even in the US, or an affiliate or a provider of sort, I would start with one state and then take it from there, because then you kind of have a chance to get your ducks in order with that state, and they can go back and forth. And when it's not so much easier going to the next state and the next state and the next state, then you can do 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever. But I would start with one.
Not like us that did 23 states in 2.5 years.
No, but you still started with one.
Yeah, we started with one, but then we scaled rapidly.
Exactly.
I can just say I'm super thankful to everyone in the Internet Vikings team to see how we can that we managed to do it.
Good. Let's see. What else do we have? We need to finish here in 1 minute. This has time's flying when you're sitting with people like Rickard and Elena here. So, but we take one more. What regulations are feared by the industry? What regulations are feared by the industry in the US general, and how well involved is the industry in discussing potential negative effects in relation to iGaming regulators? That is a really good question. Don, thank you for that. You're from Denmark, so you see this close hand. Perhaps not so much in Denmark. I think Denmark has a very good regulation compared to other markets close by, without saying too much. But this is, I don't know if operators are fearing anything. I think what you fear as an operator is regulations that you can't trust. They are changed every year or every second year, and you take in that and you take out that and you add this and you remove this, etc., etc. It's so difficult to run a business when you don't know the limits or the stakes at play. So that's what you fear. And with that, Rickard is now pointing at the watch. It's 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, he says. So Don, I'm sorry, we have to stop there. Mm-hmm. And to all of you, thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for the really brilliant and smart questions. And Rickard and Elena, a big thank you to you.
We are streaming to executives all around the world. We know what issues they face. Listen to business insights from our experts. This is Internet Vikings.